Game. Contract evaluation. The ICT Group, Abad, Dagohoy, Gonzalez, Lorica, Ramos, Sumili, and Velasco. Our group was tasked to evaluate a contract agreement between the Republic of the Philippines through the DPWH and the KPSL General Contractor Incorporated. So we have slides here to show snippet of the contract itself. We have extracted different snippet in order to show you the parts incorporated in the contract itself. Let's go to the first criteria. The first criteria that a contract has to develop a clear specification or scope of work. The first criteria answers the question, the what, the who, the where, the when, and the why of the contract itself. First, let's answer the what. A snippet here of the contract shows that the contract name, or what is the work that is needed to be done. The what, it says here that the contract is about the construction or improvement of various infrastructure in support of national security and the construction of female enlisted personnel quarters in Colonel Jesus Villamor Air Base, Pasay City, Phase 2. The second question, the who, as we see here, the contract indicates the parties that are actually contracting this agreement. The procuring entity is the Government of the Republic of the Philippines through the Department of Public Works and Highway as the procuring entity needing the items, services, or works that needs to be done. The procuring entity is represented by Mr. Mikunog D. Macud, the district engineer. You see in the snippet, we have boxed it as the procuring entity, and we have the contractor. The contractor is the KPSL General Contractor Inc. as the party that will provide for the item or services needed by the procuring entity. The contractor is represented by Samantha G. Gonzalez, Authorized Managing Officer of the KPSL General Contractor Inc. So we see the contract itself provided for to answer the question who. Okay, let's now go to the where of the contract. The contract provided that the location of the contract is in Pasay City, specifically in the Colonel Jesus Villamor Air Base, Pasay City. See here, we also added the contact or the location of the procuring and the contractor, the contracting party. The contract location, as stated in the contract agreement, is in Pasay City. The address of the procuring entity is DPWH SMDO Bonifacio Drive, corner 8th Street, Port Area, Manila. And the address of the contractor is in Lot 17, Block 11A, Brookside Lane, Barangay San Francisco, General Trias, Cavite City. See, the contract itself provided for this information. So it's very much complete with regards to the first criteria. And the when. So we have the date when the parties agreed to such stipulations. This contract agreement was made this August 5th of 2022 by between, as you all know, I've told you already, the contracting parties. So the contract agreement was made in August 5, 2022, and the works that needed to be done, as stated here, the whole works comprised in the contract shall be completed within 210 calendar days in accordance with the provisions of the bid documents. And lastly, we have the why. We had to search for the Convergence and Special Support Program. This is the why of the contract, why there is a need to construct a female enlisted personnel quarters in Colonel Jesus Villamor Air Base. So under the Convergence and Special Support Program of the DPWH, the budget proposal shall cover infrastructure support for access roads leading to declared tourism destinations, trade, industries, and economic zones, and seaports, and as well as various infrastructure in support of national security. That is the reason why there is a contract being entered into by the two parties. The first criteria is very much answered by the contract itself. Now for the second criteria. A contract must establish a baseline for cost and quantity. In the contract, it provided for the price of the whole or the total contract price. It is indicated in the contract itself. As you can see here with the snippet that we put in this slide. The total contract price indicated in the agreement is 28,768,985 pesos and 4 centavos. This is the total amount that needs to be paid by the procuring entity to the contractor in the fulfillment of the works that needed to be done. Next, we also have, it is not entirely indicated in the contract itself, but we found a attachment. We found that the contract attached several documents for the completion of the works that needed to be done. In here, we saw that there is a document with regards to the contractor's bid in the form of bid, including its technical and financial proposals, as calculated by the procuring entity and conformed to by the contractor to the notice of award. The agreement, although it is not indicated in the main contract itself, has an attachment of various documents which indicates the process and other pertinent papers or documents needed in the contract. As basis for prices, the contractor's bid, including the technical and financial proposals, are attached in the document. So they have that one checked for. Let's now go to the third criteria. The third criteria of a good contract agreement is that there must be a developed or there must be a strong contract language. In here, we can see the stipulations, the main stipulations of a contract, the responsibility of the procuring entity, the contractor, and all other aspects that is needed in order to secure the fulfillment of the works needed to be done. In the contract, we saw the promise as provided here. We have attached a snippet and colored the meanings of the words that actually conveys the promise of the procuring entity and the contractor. So the word covenant here means that in its broadest sense, a covenant is a promise, agreement, or contract between two parties. As part of the covenant, the two parties agree that certain activities will or will not be carried out. In the contract, it stated that in consideration of the payments to be made by the procuring entity to the contractor, as herein mentioned, the contractor hereby covenants with the procuring entity to execute and complete the works and remedy and defects therein in conformity with the provisions of this contract agreement in all respects. In here, it stated that the contractor promises that, of course, they are going to be paid by the procuring entity. They promise that they will execute and complete the works that needs to be done. On the other hand, we also have the promise from the procuring entity. In consideration of the execution and the completion of the works by the contractor, the procuring entity hereby covenants to pay the contractor the unit prices in the contract's calculated bid as applied to the actual quantities accomplished as certified by the procuring entity, of course, under the provisions of the contract. In here, the contractor promises to complete the work that needs to be done, and the procuring entity, of course, they have to pay because there is work that has been done. This is a very one of a strong language of an agreement that actually stipulates what is the responsibility or the obligation of each parties in order to fulfill or complete what is needed to be completed. Next, we go to the slippage. Uh, the slippage is a delay in work execution occurring when actual accomplishment falls below the target, as measured by the difference between the scheduled and actual accomplishment of the work by the contractor established from the work schedule. This is actually described as percentage of the whole works. The contract provided that this contract agreement also stipulates compliance with the instructions by the President of the Republic of the Philippines regarding contractual provisions to penalize slippage, which states that a slippage of more than 30 days, so meaning after 210 days, which is the calculated days, after 210 calendar days, the calculated day of completion of the works. So if the contractor, there was a slippage of more than 30 days, it will result to the non-payment, cancellation of contract, blacklisting of the erring contractor, and the entry of the new contractor who will finish the project. Here, it is also stipulated that there will be substitution in case the contracting party or the contractor, rather, cannot fulfill its promise made to the procuring entity. Next, we have the performance security. This is not entirely provided. I mean, the document itself is not provided in the given contract agreement to us, but it is attached as said in that contract. So performance security is a guarantee that the winning bidder will faithfully perform its obligations under the contract in accordance with the bidding documents. It shall pose a performance security prior to the signing of the contract. Performance security commonly comes even with a bond or a payment before the start of the works that needed to be done to ensure that the contractor will fulfill its duty or obligation. Next, we have the pledge. We actually had to search for this one. It is also attached in the contract. So the pledge, it states that a contractor must pledge to totally shun away the practice of corruption or red tape and must support the national government's effort, especially the DPWH, in its program initiatives with the highest degree of professionalism and ethical standards. The rule requires commitment to promote healthy competition and not engage in collusion and rigging during the bidding process. Okay. We also provided a copy of the integrity pledge. We searched it up in the internet. So here it is. The copy of the pledge from the DPWH, and the pledge to be made by the chief executive officer or the managing owner of the construction firm as a service commitment of his or her company is consistent with the policy on the procurement and execution of contracts for infrastructures, goods and services as set forth in Section 2, Clause 3.1 of the Philippine Bidding Documents, 4th edition, dated December 2010, on corrupt, fraudulent, and coercive practices, and as an agreement with business groups and Transparency International. So this is a copy of the integrity pledge that a contractor needs to sign. It's also like a promise that they will not do any corrupt practices or rigging with regards with the bidding or the procuring process. So this is the sample, the pledge that they need to sign, the sample of the pledge. So next we go to the insurance, the carry, contractors all risk insurance. is a non-standard insurance policy that provides coverage for property damage and third-party injury or damage claims, the two primary types of risk on construction projects. So the two primary risks is the property damage and the injury that may be caused during the construction. So in here, the damage to property can include improper construction of structures, the damage that happens during a renovation, and damage to temporary work erected on site. The CARI provides that if there are any damages with regards to the construction of the needed quarters, female quarters in airbase, in case there are damages in construction or damages or injury to manpower, it shall be shouldered by the contractor. With regards to the third criteria, I think the contract itself provided for a very much strict provision and a very strong language in order for the contractor to know what is obligated upon him. Let's now go to the fourth criteria, which is to develop a clear performance measure. So here, also attached in the documents, in the contract, we have the construction schedule in form of PERT CPM diagram or precedent diagram and bar chart with S-curve or other approved tools of project scheduling and cash flow. We have searched for the meaning or the definition of the PERT and the CPM. So we have here the PERT is the technique of project management which is used to manage uncertain, example, time is not unknown, activities of any project. And the CPM is a technique of project management which is used to manage only certain things or certain activities of any project. We provided for a sample of the PERT. A PERT chart is a visual project management tool used to map out and track the task and timelines. See here, we have the dates that need for the completion of certain projects. The name PERT is an acronym for Project or Program Evaluation and Review Technique. Next, we have the CPM or the Critical Path Method. It's a step-by-step project management technique for process planning that defines the critical and non-critical tasks with the goal of preventing project schedule problems and process bottlenecks. These are in line with the milestone that is needed to be reached in order that the construction is done timely or it should be fulfilled at the given time or indicated time in the contract, which is 210 days. So in here, we believe that the criteria, the fourth criteria, was actually checked by the contracts because they have also provided for a milestone or an indication or indicator of milestone in order to ensure that the contractor is fulfilling their job on time. Let's go now to the suggestions. We have just, I think, 2 suggestions for the improvement of the contract. First, we have the dispute resolution. In the contract, it's stated that there is also a termination because there's also a substitution. And of course, the contract itself that it will end after 210 days or after the completion of the work that is needed to be done. But there is no dispute resolution. Main thing we suggest is a plan for dispute resolution, which is not provided in the contract. During these times, especially with the pandemic still at arm's reach, there are still unforeseen circumstances that may cause delays in the construction. So, of course, what if there are going to be another lockdown? What if there's raise in unforeseen circumstances such as another lockdown, or we don't hope for it, but we have to be ready for it. So we are thinking that the contract needs a dispute resolution in case of uncertain things happen that is actually justifiable or it is actually valid for a delay to be seen, or a delay, if there's a delay. So we suggest that parties provide for effective dispute resolution to also lessen costs of the government due to the bureaucracy. Of course, if there's going to be a substitution, they're going to have the procuring entity will going to have to, it's either, of course, they're going to replace the contractor either by a public bidding or a different mode of contracting another party, which is gonna be a delay as well because of the bureaucracy. The benchmarking, we suggest this for instances that there is another contractor that can provide for the same services in case that the primary one defaulted. In benchmarking, if the contract provides for alternative options, then its implementation, even in the default of the primary contracting party, will continue until its completion. This will also be a guide if the procuring entity is actually getting the worth of the government's money. With benchmarking, we can see, or the government can see, if the job or the task that is being done by the contractor is worth the money that the government is paying, or it does it actually satisfy or reach the standard of the procuring entity, or the standard of work that is needed by the procuring entity. So basically, we're done with the evaluation, and the conclusion that our group came up with is that after evaluating and scrutinizing the contract agreement, we have concluded that the contract is complete and contains all the criteria necessary for its implementation. The four-page contract actually comprises the essential elements of a good contract. As discussed earlier, the agreement had provided for the needed information in order to fulfill the agreed covenant and to lessen the risk for both parties. And that would be all. Thank you.